what type of profile is a human being that takes a job knowing that they're going to be shot at? Wouldn't that be an exclusion for a fitness for duty?
This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast. Never in history has anything ever been created more complex than the human brain. Life, movement, intelligence are some of the basic functions that are completed with little or no effort, and often taken for granted. The gray matter that resides at the top of our body is a masterpiece of complexity, perfectly engineered to carry out and carry on human life. While in recent history we have begun to understand more about this supercomputer, there is still so much that is a mystery. The effects of external forces govern our actions and emotions, rewire our electrical system, and cripple the brain, both emotionally and physically. We know so much about what goes on inside our mind, yet there is still more to understand. With each new day, advancements offer hope that we may one day be able to heal the unknown and the unseen injuries of the brain. Not all wounds are visible, which makes fixing them all the more difficult. I'm Kevin Donaldson here with Mike Failace, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here and that's the stories we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, please comment, ring the bell to get notified of all new content, and now you can join. Follow us on all social media so you can find out exactly what we're up to. And on this episode of the Suffering Podcast, you threw me for a big loop tonight.
This special episode.
It's very special. There's two people in here who I admire, who I follow, who I listen to as if it was canonized law. And we're here tonight to talk to Stephanie Samuels with special guest, the Irish Angel Amanda Coleman. So Stephanie and I have been talking a long time, and Stephanie is doing groundbreaking work into solving this invisible injuries that we have and nobody can see. Before we get into anything, let's give a big shout out to our marquee sponsor, and that's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody as police, but we do trust them, so go to toyotahackensack.com. Let them find you a car.
My father still has his Toyota of Hackensack car. He still doesn't know the buttons.
No, he hasn't. He has no idea. The sunroof opens every time he turns the key on. So each week, Amanda, you're a podcast veteran, so you know this. Each week we take a message from our audience. This week's social media question comes from FanCon54. What's the biggest misconception about post-traumatic stress that you know of? Stephanie, you're our guest tonight. I want to lead this one off to you.
So I think that that people think that people with PTSD are crazy.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Perfect.
I hate that word crazy. I get actually offended by that word crazy.
Yeah.
Although I'm writing a book called Man, You Are Crazy.
And it's on your mug.
I'm writing a book called Man, You Are Crazy. And yeah, it's, no, it's all about rebranding. So crazy is, you got to take ownership of it. Like it's like if I call Mike crazy, that's a good thing because he knows that I'm a little tilted as well. But nobody else is allowed to call him crazy.
And they use it as a weapon, kind of weaponizes what PTSD is. Well, they have PTSD, therefore they're crazy. They're PTSD, then they have to be, and they fill in the blanks of all this negativity rather than really understanding what post-traumatic stress disorder really is.
Well, that's what's going to be the fun about this episode because you've done a deep dive into a different aspect of it. Mike, when you hear some of the stuff that's going to go on tonight, you just watch to the end, everybody, because you're going to understand. Amanda, what do you think? You deal with police officers day in and day out. You've seen a lot. You've seen a lot of dented people. Yeah. What do you think the misconception that from your time of getting involved with police officers to now, what's the biggest misconception you know of?
The misconception, I think, for me is that everybody thinks that you have to be in the services, basically, to have PTS, when that is not the case at all. Nobody is exempt from it. It can happen to anybody. Man, woman, child, I don't think anybody is. Yeah, absolutely. It's the scars that's left behind, so, yeah. I know you have it. Yeah. You have it because we've heard your story. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's right. It's right in the letters. The D, disorder. It's not a disorder.
No. So we recently learned that we always didn't like the word disorder because it's an ugly word. It's like it gets on your skin and you can't shake it off. But we recently heard they're getting rid of the D because it's the brain's natural response.
Disorder almost means you're deformed.
Yeah, it's ugly.
Yeah, it's an ugly word. And listen, I got post-traumatic stress, and I don't think I have a disorder.
Well, you got a little bit. You got a lot of
I got a
disorders.
lot of disorders, but post-traumatic stress isn't one of them.
For me, I think there's a lot of people, because it happens in the police world, where somebody is diagnosed with chronic post-traumatic stress or complex post-traumatic stress or just plain post-traumatic stress, and you can't trust them anymore. Some of the people who I trust the most have post-traumatic stress. As a matter of fact, I gravitate to trust those people more because they understand the way my thought process works and I understand theirs. So it's almost like a common bond where you become connected through whatever stress that you went through. So don't ever think that if somebody comes up to you and says, I have post-traumatic stress, because I used to be very embarrassed to say it, that you can't trust them. Those are the people you can trust because, their brain is rewired, but they're actually more wholesome when it be. I don't really know how to formulate, but I trust people with post-traumatic stress a lot more.
But it's just weird because people don't understand and they cast judgment. Like I was told, why don't you just snap out of it?
Yeah,
it's not something you can snap out of.
We actually had a we went to the same therapist through workers' comp, and he said, "Well, you were a cop, didn't you expect to get shot at?" I'm like, no, not really. The statistics
You're
are so
a terrible
low.
therapist. Weren't you expected to get punched in the face? Yeah.
But the other question is, what type of profile is a human being that takes a job knowing that they're going to be shot at? Wouldn't that be an exclusion for a fitness for duty?
Absolutely.
without a doubt.
Absolutely. Especially the person that's doing your fitness for duty post-shooting is the same one that did it pre-shooting. And I always said for a long time, if you're saying that I can no longer do this job because of mental issues, well, this job obviously made me because you passed me, and now you're going to fail me. So, well, FanCon54, thank you so much for sending that in. Tom Flynn is out on location right now getting more questions as we speak. We've been waiting a long time for this, Stephanie. And
We have.
And, I know you sat in a lot of traffic on the way up here. I had to lure you in.
You did.
With
She got PTS from the traffic.
Yes, she
She
did.
did.
She did. And the only thing that you were hot. I know you were hot.
You have no idea.
Oh, I can't because I get the
But
same
then
in traffic.
some idiot sends her a text to make her even more pissed.
Yeah.
So let me give our.
That really helped.
Let me give our audience. Mike had never talked to you. Let me give our audience a little window into this. So Stephanie got caught in some traffic on the way up here, coming from Central Jersey. That's Central.
Correct.
Now it's Central Jersey.
That's Central Jersey. And Mike's like, send me your number. I'm like, don't do it. Don't do it. This is bad. This is really bad.
Yep.
Because I had spoken to you earlier and you told me what was going on. And sure enough, he sends out a text and I'm reading that. I'm like, we're going to lose our guest tonight.
Well, you know what? He knew that because he had a backup.
Yes, I
You
know.
did. That's you set
I was
me up.
trying to send you
set
home.
me up.
Could have rescheduled.
You could have just kindly said, you know what? We've got Amanda here, and she's a rock star. We'll see you
I'm
another
really
time.
not.
Stephanie, why don't you turn around and go home? We got Amanda here.
Yeah, exactly.
Stephanie, stay.
You're the bonus.
So I found you through a friend of ours, Mike DePalma, who gave me Dr. Anastasia Pytel, and he said, you got to speak to this woman. You got to speak to her because she's going to tell you things that are going to open your eyes. And we connected. I got you on the phone, and you just started. You'd never spoken to me.
Yep.
You had no idea about my backstory or anything. You just started reeling stuff off.
Yep.
And I said, holy shit. To the point where I called Mike, and I said, hey, Mike, did you talk to Stephanie at all? Did you give her any background? He goes, no. He said it in a Hoboken accent, but he said no. And it was like you were telling my life story. Now, why don't you give our audience a little window into you? Where'd you grow up? How'd you grow up?
Grew up.
Did you grow up?
Did you grow up?
I'm a female, so the answer is yes. I did grow up. We have to grow up to take care of men that don't grow up.
I refuse to grow up.
Yeah, no, I get that. You're not the exception to the rule, just so you know.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So kind of bi-coastal. Grew up, spent the first 12 years of my life in Westchester County, and then moved out to California. Was there until I was 25, so another about 12 and a half, 13 years. Did my, obviously, my education out there, then went to college, did my first master's out there, came back east, and was in Manhattan for a few years, and then moved out to New Jersey. So I've been out here since I've been 25, so.
Were you a military kid?
Military brat.
No,
Yeah.
no, nope. Dad was an attorney.
Okay.
So had worked. He worked for NBC.
That
as an
makes
attorney.
perfect sense.
And then we moved out to California. He got a job. He had traveled a tremendous amount. And my brother, who I adore, but was not always the most emotionally insightful person, gave my dad the song "Cats in the Cradle" and had no idea why my dad
Harry
was
Chapin.
why my dad was sobbing at this. I was like, "Whoa, this doesn't seem good." So, so my dad ended up. We ended up moving out to California. He got a job working for Filmways. So that was Green Acres, Beverly Hillbillies, and
So did you ever meet Lauren Green?
So I did not meet Lauren Green.
Michael Landon?
No,
Carol O'Connor.
no. Trying to think.
I met Carol O'Connor in California one time.
Oh,
he had a
that's cool.
restaurant.
That's cool.
Archie Bunker.
That is very
Yeah,
cool.
but that's
He did
so
it.
that's a whole different world out there. I
It was
mean,
a very different world.
you know, you were coming from the East Coast, even Westchester
It
County.
was East Coast. I went to a high school known as Beverly Hills High School. So I ended up.
90210.
90210.
So no. So just so you know, the high school is 90212, but the zip code that everybody wanted to be in was 90210. It's anything north of Santa Monica. So there's all that.
That was the
stuff
cool kid
going on.
area. That was a
the
cool
real
kid zip code.
area. Right.
But you saw some things out there that were just so foreign. Like I've been out to California and I try to explain to people what the different parts of the country are outside of New Jersey, New York. It's a different mindset out there. I don't understand how, first of all, if you're looking at sunshine all the time, there's something wrong with you. You need seasons. I know
agree.
California has seasons, but you got to go
Yeah,
further
no.
north.
Yeah, no.
No.
Yeah. And my mom, because she grew up back east, so she would change out her closets. I'm like, Mom, you're mentally ill. Like there's no season. She's like, it's winter. She brings out her fur. I'm like, Mom, it's 68. This is really not true. And then the smell of mothballs. I'm like, why do we have mothballs? Like, why is this here? I'm like, oh God.
I think they gave him away as a parting gift of the Depression.
That was it. Well, because they ordered so many before the Depression.
Exactly.
And they had warehouses full of them. So they used to just give them out on Halloween. They'd give you a bag of mothballs.
With the apple. But when you went to school, was it like? I'm sure you didn't go to school just for therapy, or did you? Was that always your path?
No, so interesting. So in high school, it's not even a club. It was a group that did kind of peer counseling for kids. You had to apply for it and everything else. So I ended up doing that, except I really wasn't scholastically brilliant. So tutoring kids was never going to be, my peers was never going to be it. Like trying to figure out how to get through math and science was going to be my greatest issue. I'm sure there's lots of politically incorrect things I can probably say about that, but I will try and stay away from it. So
We're all about politically incorrect.
okay, so I went to UCLA, which stands for University of Caucasians Lost Among Asians. So that would kill it. Told you. So
I love it. I love it.
So I used to sit in the back of the classroom knowing I was limited because everything was on a damn bell-shaped curve. And I used to count the black straight hair. And I'm like, there's no way I'm getting a goddamn C. So I would end up leaving the class. And so if you ever look at my transcripts, all of my science classes were done in the summer because the Asians never went to summer school.
Yeah, they didn't have to.
So anyway, it's just part of the politically incorrect stuff.
Well,
So
what did you go to UCLA for?
So I went undergraduate psych, which was surprising. So in high school, ended up doing which will kind of absolutely segue into this. So ended up doing this peer kind of this teen support, and then one of the students' moms was a psychologist, and they talked about doing a hotline for teenagers that would be answered by teenagers.
I saw that in your bio.
I was
cool.
I was in the first focus group,
Wow.
and so how people have asked me all the time about the hotlines about I legislated for cop to cop here in New Jersey, and kind of where the ideas came from, and this is it, like what worked for us as teens, and you realize, and when I came back out here and started riding with the different police departments because I was trying to get psych services, which hadn't been done for debriefings or whatever. This goes back almost 30 some odd years ago. and realize that at some point in time, cops, well, for the first few hours, like if I was doing a ride along with you, and it's like, hey, how long it's cuter. I was younger. So the first couple hours, you get in and they're like, how long you're staying? And I'm like, the entire shift. They're like, the what? And I'm like, the entire shift. And you can just tell that their ass is puckered. They are just miserable with this. And so for the first two...
Yeah, because let me stop you there. Cops will do stuff in their police car that they're not going to do in front of a woman.
That was the least of the issues, I'm sure. So for the first 2 hours, they were absolutely convinced I was put in there by their chief.
You're a plant.
Right. By IA. By hour 3, they realized nobody had fucking vetted me. There was no way in the world that anybody had actually spoken to me, because if they did, they would have never put me in a police car with anybody. So, it ended up being great, because after like hour 4, some of that armor starts to come down.